So is the UFC in a decline? I mean, I feel it. I'm pretty sure you guys feel it. I'm pretty sure that the entire world does feel it. That the UFC just doesn't feel like how it used to a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, we did see some great things happen in the UFC. I feel like the lightweight division was pushing the UFC to its limits because we saw a lot of big stars just come out of that division. We saw Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier. I mean, it was just a really poppin' division, and for a long time, I think, like, for a good 2 years, it was the division that was just pushing the UFC to its limits. We saw a lot of classic fights, like, fights that are definition to that era in the UFC, without a doubt, but nowadays, we kinda don't really have that. There's not really that one division that's just pushing UFC to its limits. I mean, I guess there could be an argument for like the bantamweight division because I think the bantamweight division is pretty damn good. But besides that, I mean, there's not really one division nowadays that's like pushing the boundaries of what the UFC could do in the current era. I mean, in my honest opinion, the one guy that was pushing the limits last year was Alex Pereira in the light heavyweight division, but unfortunately, he did suffer a loss this year that just kind of halted all that momentum. So apparently the pay-per-view sales have plummeted, which I have not at all been surprised by that. No major new stars have been created, which again, not really surprised by that at all. MMA fans seem upset with recent and future cards. I mean, that's pretty obvious. One of the main things that I feel like the UFC should definitely do is get rid of the Apex. The Apex should definitely not be a thing anymore. For whatever reason, the UFC just keeps on tugging along with that, and for whatever reason, they just keep on, pushing it onto the fans, and I just don't think that it's a very, very smart move because for years we've been saying that the Apex should be freaking removed from the UFC, but the UFC doesn't probably wanna remove it because they maximize revenue, because it's just so cheap to produce. I mean, it's just get the fighters there, get them paid, and then broadcast it to the millions of people that are on the ESPN app. And I feel like it's just a really bad thing to have the Apex still open, to the fans because it doesn't show real fan engagement in the octagon, which is something that I've been harping about for a very long time. I really do think that the Apex should add like 100, 200 more seats. There should be, a war of fucking chants in the Apex just to make things a lot more interesting. I don't know how many people fit in the Apex right now, but every time I just look at it, it kind of does feel like it's an empty freaking space. They should add more fans into, the Apex because that's what makes the sport important, is and exciting as well is just seeing the reaction from the crowd because I feel like that's a very important aspect. Fighting should be in front of a crowd, especially in the UFC and MMA. It should definitely be in front of a big crowd. And, having that small crowd in the Apex now, it just sucks. It's really bad and from an entertaining standpoint, in my honest opinion. Another thing about the UFC not creating any stars is because for the obvious reason that right now we are in the current meta of wrestling and grappling, which in my honest opinion, yes, if you want to be a successful MMA fighter nowadays, you do have to have really good grappling and really good wrestling. But let's just all be honest, it's not great for the UFC. It's not great from an entertaining aspect as well because I mean, it just pushes a certain type of fight style that the fans literally do not want to watch. Nobody wants to watch an ultimate cuddling championship fight. Like nobody wants to see that. It's really disappointing that we see a lot of that in championship level fights. I know that, if your fighter that one that you're rooting for is winning the fight because he's controlling his opponent by grappling and sitting just on top of him, I get it, but from like the casual standpoint is just terrible. It just sucks to look at. And let's be honest, man. The people that push the sport, as much as people don't like to hear it, is the casual fans. The casual fans are like 90% of the sport. Let's just be honest about that. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. The purists are like the freaking smallest demographic in MMA. Let's just be honest. The purists don't bring in, the UFC money. It's the casuals. The casuals is what's bringing in new money. It's what brings in, pay-per-view sales. It's what brings in fandom, and people don't want to see a grappling match. People don't want to watch a UFC fight to see another motherfucker lay on top of another dude for 5 minutes of a round and then just have that guy, win by decision. Like that sucks. Nobody wants to see that. And of course, the casual fans don't even want to see that because it's not entertaining. It used to be that we saw a lot more action in the UFC, but like I said, right now we are in the meta that, we are seeing people like Islam Makhachev. Of course, we saw Khabib. We're seeing people like Marab. We're seeing people like who else? This last guy last weekend who won the fight literally by holding on to his opponent. This is the new meta of winning, and it kind of does suck because fighters are, pretty much trying to secure victories because it's going to help them get much deeper with better opportunities in their career, but it's also hurting the UFC because nobody wants to literally sit down and watch a hugging match. It literally doesn't. In my honest opinion, there should be a lot more incentives nowadays to get like a knockout of the night. $50,000 just isn't doing enough. $50,000 for a knockout of the night or performance of the night is not doing enough. There needs to be a better incentive to have fighters, stand in front of each other and throw because that's what's going to bring in views. That's what's going to bring in money. That's what's going to bring in new fans. That's what's going to bring in, the casual fans that don't want to see a hugging match, come back to the UFC and see fighters throw down. Unfortunately, we are in that fucking type of game, where we have to, well, not really have to, but there needs to be an incentive to kind of appease to the casual fans. And it's the truth. It really is the truth. So another big issue that I do see is the fact that they do give us like banger cards, but then we have to wait like 3 weeks in order to get another one. And then we're stuck with like 3 weekends in a row with watching like snoozers of events, if I'm just being completely honest. And I think that that's a really bad strategy because, I mean, obviously this weekend we are seeing Alexander Volkanovski versus, Diego Lopez. But next weekend we're seeing what? Um, Ian Machado Gary versus Carlos Parates, which is honestly the most interesting fight of that entire card. I mean, Anthony Smith, who the fuck wants to see Anthony Smith fight? I mean, he's going to be the co-main event. I mean, who the fuck wants to see that? That compared to this entire card, it just doesn't make any sense in my honest opinion. I feel like it's a really bad strategy from the UFC that they give us really, really good cards, like maybe once or twice a month, every other month, and then we're stuck with complete freaking snoozers. Maybe that's their way of getting us addicted to UFC because they give us really, really good dope, but then they sell us fucking garbage, like 2 or 3 times in a row. And I feel like that's what's leaving a lot of hate, in my honest opinion, from the fans, especially, from the people that cover the sport like myself, that we are forced, to keep up with this sort of shit, even though we really kind of don't even want to watch it. But at the end of the day, really, I'm not surprised by any of these things. All the takes that people are saying down in the MMA community that, the fights aren't as entertaining. There's no new superstars. The fights just are kind of boring nowadays. You kind of know what to expect some fighters to do, to go out there, wrestle and grapple and hump their opponents in order to get a win. I do understand it. I do get it. I feel like the UFC should definitely have like an incentive for fighters to go out there and actually fight instead of looking for freaking grappling and wrestling exchanges in order for a fighter to win a round. I think the UFC should, definitely look into this. I think that they should be concerned because if the fans don't like the product, I mean, they're going to get it somewhere else. They definitely are. I feel like right now it could be a big opportunity for some other promotions out there to take note of what fans don't want to watch and then kind of adjust to it. In order for the UFC to stay on top, they have to make the good dope. They have to give us good dope because if they aren't getting us good dope, I mean, fans are fans of fighting, they'll probably find good dope somewhere else. I mean, it is what it is. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. As always, it's a pleasure. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the UFC is in a decline? I definitely do feel it. As someone who's been covering the sport for almost 3 freaking years, I feel it. I feel it, especially from when I first started to now. It's a really big difference. It really is. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.